Rock history is filled with legends who rose to superstardom only to watch it all crumble in ways fans never saw coming. Fame protected them for years, but the truth eventually caught up. From grunge royalty to metal icons and stadium kings, these artists didn't just lose fame, they were swallowed by scandals, addictions, tragedies, and brutal public downfalls. Today, we reveal the 10 rock icons whose careers collapsed harder than anyone expected. Axl Rose, the vanishing king of rock at the height of Guns N' Roses' global domination. Axl Rose wasn't just a rock star, he was a cultural earthquake. His voice, attitude, unpredictability, and raw intensity made him perhaps the most compelling frontman of his generation. But behind the explosive charisma was a fragile, volatile, deeply misunderstood figure. As pressure mounted, Axl withdrew. Lawsuits, band conflicts, perfectionism, and emotional instability slowly began suffocating his momentum. The man who once commanded stadiums vanished into a decade-long silence inside his mansion, obsessively working on an album nobody believed would ever come. Meanwhile, the industry evolved. MTV changed, new bands rose, and Axl's absence turned his legend into frustration. When Chinese democracy finally arrived, the world had already moved on. Axl didn't just lose fame, he lost the era that once revolved around him. Vince Neil from arena god to a fading voice. In the 80s, Vince Neil embodied the excess glamour. And Danger of Mötley Crüe, he had the voice, the look, the attitude, everything a rock frontman needed to be adored. But personal tragedy, alcoholism, weight struggles, and strained band relationships took an irreversible toll. As years passed, Vince's voice deteriorated dramatically. Viral videos of off-key performances overshadowed his legacy. Fans who once saw him as a hero now questioned if he could still perform at all. The decline wasn't sudden, it was painful, public, and relentless. Today, Vince remains a recognizable figure, but far from the commanding performer who once set arenas on fire. His fame didn't disappear, it decayed slowly under the spotlight. Billy Idol, the rise. The crash, the fade. Billy Idol dominated the 1980s like few others. His sneer, spiked hair, leather, and dance punk attitude made him one of MTV's earliest megastars. But the lifestyle that defined him also destroyed him. Addictions spiraled out of control. Creativity stalled, and a catastrophic motorcycle accident in 1990 nearly cost him his leg and his career. By the time he recovered, the world had changed. Grunge had replaced glam, trends had shifted, and Billy Idol's iconic style suddenly felt like a relic of a bygone era. He tried comebacks, but the cultural wave that once carried him simply wasn't there anymore. Though still respected, Idol never reclaimed the level of fame he once commanded. His fall wasn't just personal, it was the collapse of an entire era. Scott Weiland, a genius, destroyed by his demons. Scott Weiland was one of the most original voices of the 90s. Stone Temple Pilots exploded into the scene, and Scott became an instant icon, mysterious, stylish, unpredictable. But behind the brilliance was a man battling lifelong addiction, severe mood disorders, and toxic relationships. His performances became erratic, tours imploded, and bandmates struggled to keep him stable. Eventually, he was fired not once, but twice from his own legendary band. Velvet Revolver gave him another chance at greatness, but the same demons resurfaced. By the time of his passing, his fame had been overshadowed by years of instability. Scott didn't fade because the world forgot him. He faded because his inner chaos consumed him. Jon Bon Jovi spent decades as one of rock's most consistent, dependable, and charismatic frontmen. But in the late 2010s, fans began noticing an uncomfortable truth. Jon was losing his voice, not just aging, truly losing it. Cracked notes, missing high parts, and weakened tone became the new normal. The internet magnified every mistake, and debates erupted over whether he should retire. Jon's fame remains enormous, but his aura of vocal invincibility is gone. What once defined him, his soaring, anthemic voice, has become a painful reminder of the cost of longevity. Jon didn't vanish, he simply became human. Courtney Love, from grunge royalty to a career consumed by chaos. Courtney Love was once one of the most magnetic forces in the entire grunge era, a raw, unfiltered, unapologetic icon whose band Hole produced some of the decade's most powerful and emotionally charged music. Live Through This and Celebrity Skin weren't just albums. They were cultural statements, blending vulnerability with fury in a way only Courtney could deliver. She had the charisma, the attitude, the shock factor, and the artistic brilliance to become a rock legend in her own right. But her rise was always shadowed by controversy, addiction, public breakdowns, legal battles, and a media obsessed with portraying her as the villain of the grunge world. Managers constantly scrambled to protect her image, soften her public appearances, and control the damage from her impulsive moments. For a while, it worked, but the chaos eventually grew louder than the music as scandals escalated. Courtney's career became defined less by her artistry and more by her personal turmoil. Accusations, lawsuits, violent outbursts, social media meltdowns, and her deeply complicated connection to Kurt Cobain fed a narrative she could never fully escape. Instead of being remembered as one of the strongest female voices in rock, she became a tabloid fascination, a tragic symbol of fame's cruelty and self-destruction's gravity. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, who couldn't outrun reality. Ozzy Osbourne is a living legend, a man who reshaped heavy metal and survived levels of excess that would have destroyed anyone else decades earlier. For years, fans saw him as indestructible, a chaotic force of nature who could stumble, swear, slur, and still somehow walk on stage and sing like only Ozzy could. But behind that myth was a body collapsing under the weight of decades of addiction and a Parkinson's-like condition that he tried to keep performing through for as long as he possibly could. The man who once bit the head off a bat and snorted ants with Mötley Crüe became physically fragile, struggling with balance, speech, and mobility. Tours were postponed, then canceled. Public appearances showed a slower, trembling Ozzy who was fighting a battle no amount of fame could shield him from. His family and managers worked tirelessly to protect his legacy, controlling media access, limiting interviews, and filtering what the world saw. Still, the reality seeped through. The Prince of Darkness wasn't fading because he lost relevance. He was fading because his body simply couldn't keep up with the legend anymore. Ozzy changed music forever, but the price he paid was brutally steep. Marilyn Manson from shock rock, royalty to cultural exile. In the 90s and early 2000s, Marilyn Manson wasn't just a musician, he was a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Parents feared him, politicians attacked him, and teenagers worshipped him. His Antichrist superstar persona made him the most controversial figure in American music. But controversy was also the fuel that kept him at the top. Managers leaned into the chaos, orchestrating shocking performances and carefully controlling media narratives to turn outrage into publicity. But the darkness Manson projected eventually became impossible, too separate from the allegations that surfaced years later. After 2020, accusations from multiple women exploded into the public sphere. And suddenly, Manson's carefully engineered shock persona looked far less theatrical and far more incriminating. Labels dropped him overnight. Tour promoters pulled the plug. Film and TV roles evaporated. And the industry, even those who once profited from his infamy, distanced themselves instantly. Managers could no longer shield him. The public that once made him powerful became the same force that erased him. In just a few months, Marilyn Manson went from a cultural lightning rod to a near-complete disappearance from the mainstream. His fall wasn't just a career decline, it was an eradication. Sebastian Bach, from golden voice to fading echo dot. There was a time when Sebastian Bach was one of the most electrifying vocalists alive. As the frontman of Skid Row, he dominated the late 80s and early 90s with a mix of dangerous charisma, unmatched range, and a stage presence that felt untamable. Fans saw him as the ultimate poster boy for sleaze, metal, gorgeous, loud, rebellious, unstoppable. But fame doesn't last forever. And Bach's decline began the moment he and Skid Row parted ways. Managers tried for years to secure a massive comeback, reunions, tours, collaborations, but none restored the magic of his early career. His solo albums drew loyal fans, but failed to break into mainstream rock. Meanwhile, lineup conflicts, public feuds, and shifting trends in music made it even harder for him to reclaim his status. Over time, his name slipped from headlining marquees to nostalgic mentions in rock documentaries and fan forums. Sebastian Bach still has the voice, the passion, and the presence, but the industry that once revolved around him has moved on. Today, he is respected but rarely celebrated, a legendary echo of a golden era that refuses to return. Kid Rock scandals, outbursts, and a reputation that ate itself. Kid Rock burst into the spotlight as a genre-bending rebel who mixed rock, rap, and country into something uniquely his own. His early career was explosive, filled with chart toppers, massive tours, MTV domination, and a wild persona that fans loved. For a time, he was everywhere: radio, award shows, festivals, even Hollywood appearances. But somewhere along the way, the music stopped being the headline, and the controversies started taking over. Political tirades, viral rants, bar fights, feuds, and online explosions became so common that they overshadowed his artistry. Managers struggled to keep his image under control as every outburst chipped away at his mainstream appeal. Instead of being the rebellious voice of a generation, he became a polarizing figure that promoters hesitated to book, and brands avoided partnering with. His fan base became smaller, but more divided. His chart presence dwindled. His cultural impact faded. Kid Rock didn't disappear entirely, but the version of him that once dominated the rock-rap scene is long gone. The spotlight didn't move away from him. He pushed it away with both hands. At their peak, these artists dominated entire eras, shaping fashion, sound, culture, and rebellion itself. Yet fame is fragile, and even the biggest icons can fall faster than they rose. Some collapsed under addiction, others drowned in controversy, and a few were destroyed by the very industry that once protected them. Their stories remind us that behind the lights and legends are human beings fighting battles we rarely see. If you want more deep dives into the hidden, tragic, and unbelievable stories behind rock's greatest figures, make sure to subscribe. The next episode goes even darker.